don't scare me, but you should fear me. The sun is setting, don't trust your hearing. You made a monster, I'm your imposter. Go ahead and wander, but don't trust the water.
Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I'm back with another true crime video, and today we're going to be doing the story of Anele Tembe and aka Kiernan Forbes. Now, if you're new to this channel, I try to do these videos often, so please do check out the playlist. I've done a couple already and I will be doing more in the near future. So I definitely do have a few disclaimers before we dive into today's video. First and foremost, this video does not intend to cast any aspersions. If anything, it is just a chronological breakdown of the lives of these two individuals. And lastly, please try as hard as you can to be kind in the comment section. With that said, and without wasting any more time, let's dive into today's video. Today's video takes us to Cape Town, then to Johannesburg, back to Cape Town again, and subsequently we will end up in Durban. Kiernan, aka Gerald Forbes, was born on the 28th of January in 1988 to mother Lynn Forbes and father Tony Forbes. Lynn Forbes fell pregnant with aka when she was 19 years old while studying towards being a teacher at the University of Western Cape in Cape Town. Not too long after the couple found out that they were expecting, they decided to get married. Lynn finished off at the University of Western Cape and got her diploma as a teacher, and they immediately started their lives together. 5 years after aka was born, the family welcomed their second son, Stephen Forbes, in 1993. After their second son was born, Lynn transitioned from being a teacher to being a full-time stay-at-home mother to raise her boys. Life was very good for the family. The couple loved one another and the house was very warm, and they were raising two healthy kids. In 1995, they decided to relocate from Cape Town to Johannesburg because this made better business sense for Tony, who was working as an IT specialist at the time. Now, you must remember, this is 1995, just a year after South Africa had gained its freedom post-apartheid. So moving to Johannesburg really felt like a break, and also there were new business opportunities, especially for people of color. So the family packed their stuff and moved from Cape Town to Johannesburg. When they arrived in Johannesburg, aka enrolled at the Greenside Primary School, and this is where he'd complete his primary education. The year now is 1998. aka is 10 years old, and on the other side of the country, away in Durban, Anele Tembe is born on the 11th of October of 1998 to mother Lulu Tembe and father Moses Tembe. She was born into a prominent, well-to-do family, with the father Moses Tembe being a successful businessman who served in multiple boards and some of which registered with the JSC. Anele was born into a big family, with her being the youngest from her mother and father. She was later described by her father as someone who was extremely loving and daddy's girl, and she could also be stubborn at times, but she was generally someone who stood by something that she believed in. Anele did her primary education at Glenwood Primary School, where she excelled in sports and art. She was said to be exceptionally good in soccer and ice skating. Unfortunately, when Anele was still pretty young, her mother Lulu Tembe passed away after a short illness. And naturally, Anele did not take this well, and she really struggled a lot with it. Not too long after her mother passed away, her father remarried, and he married Ntombiyesizwe Zulu, who is the daughter of the late AmaZulu king Goodwill Zwelithini. With everything that was going on, Anele moved from Glenwood Primary School to Durban Girls College, where she also excelled in soccer. She was a captain of the soccer first team. In high school, she also started dabbling a bit in acting, and she actually got a job in one of the kids' shows that aired on the SABC. Back in Johannesburg, we'll have to go back a little bit. aka moved from Greenside to St. John's College. He meets and becomes friends with Dalimpofu's son, Sizwe Walsh Mpofu. And together with their other friend, they start a group together. It's the three of them, and they're a hip-hop group, and they call themselves Entity. Just for context, the year is 2002 and aka is 14 years old. Their group actually does so well that they're even nominated at the Cora Awards. Fast forward 4 years later, after amazing singles and music videos, they unfortunately disbanded the group in 2006 when they were 18 years old. So immediately after this happened, aka started working on his solo career. Unfortunately, back at home, things went amazing. Unfortunately, his mother and father were divorcing after 20 years of marriage. Fortunately, despite the divorce, the family remained united, even though Tony Forbes moved back to Cape Town and actually started a new family because he had a small daughter after that. But the family remained united. The father continued to play a huge part in their lives despite the distance and the divorce. AKA started concentrating a lot more on his solo music, and in 2009 he released 3 solo singles: In My Walk, I Do, and Mistakes. Also around this time, he meets up and teams up with Tibelo, also known as Tibbs, who takes on the role of being his manager. And truly, this was the beginning of the AKA we all grew to love and enjoy. They pushed the singles that he had released for 2 years while they were working on his first solo album, which would be released in 2011, named Alter Ego. His first album went on to win several awards and really solidified AKA's space in the South African music industry. They went all out to promote AKA. He also collaborated with a lot of up-and-coming hip-hop artists like Kulichana at the time. And you can easily see by watching this video that they were literally on the rise. Now, although they're working, but it really comes across that they're also having a lot of fun while they're still going up. Also, you get to see that even though Tibbs was actually AK's manager, but he was also on the music video. So he's actually a very close friend of his as well. And it comes across a lot in this video because you see that they're having a lot of fun. They're basically playing rock, paper, scissors. They're playing rugby at the headboard. They're just having the time of their lives. AKA's star showed no signs of dimming. Instead, it was getting brighter and brighter. He was booked left, right, and center, not just in South Africa, but also around the continent. Now, in 2012, while promoting his album in Botswana, 24-year-old AKA met DJ Zinhle, who was also performing at the same event. Now, though they knew of one another, they had really not met each other officially, so this was their first time. So later on in an interview, DJ Zinhle went on to express that after the concert that they had been attending in Botswana, AKA came up to her and basically said that she needs to stop being stuck up and come out with him tonight and his crew. Where she went on to say that on their way from where the festival was, they actually got stuck in traffic, and AKA apparently saw that she was frustrated and she was cold, so he gave her his jacket. So DJ Zinhle went on to express that after that, they actually went on to chat until 4 a.m. in the morning and even went out for breakfast after that. So essentially, this became their beginning of their relationship. But for whatever reason, they decided not to be open with their relationship from the get-go, keeping it under wraps and really not posting about each other on social media. In 2014, AKA released his second album, Levels, which was huge. This album went on to be certified platinum. Also around this time, we started seeing traces of the relationship between AKA and DJ Zinhle on their social media pages. Zinhle also fell pregnant towards the end of 2014, which perhaps led them to wanting to be more public about their relationship, because soon after that, we started seeing DJ Zinhle posting more and more of AKA with selfies here and there, to the point of which it got really obvious who the father of her unborn baby was. Unfortunately, although this was supposed to be the happiest time of their lives, they had a little bundle of joy coming. Things were about to go south. Mid-2015, DJ Zinhle gave birth to their beautiful daughter, Kiernan Forbes, in July, and AKA was right by her side when she gave birth. And this honestly would become AKA's theme of his life, is that he showed up. He always showed up for his daughter. He showed up from birth all the way until the very last day. Unfortunately, barely 2 months after the daughter was born, DJ Zinhle launched a blog and she shared the most shattering news to the whole of South Africa. She had found out that AKA was cheating with one of the other celebrities in South Africa, Bonang Matheba. Bonang and AKA immediately denied everything, and Bonang went as far as calling on her lawyers to tell DJ Zinhle to retract her statement and take down all the tweets and blog posts. Just for background purposes, DJ Zinhle and Bonang were actually friends. Or well, at least they were friendly towards each other. And you see this a lot on the footprints of their tweets between one another. Around this time, they used to call each other wifey. And you see it on a tweet that I'll give you, for example, here on the 26th of November 2014. DJ Zinhle is already pregnant at this time. Bonang is on the cover of Glamour magazine. So DJ Zinhle tweets out #Woman Crush Wednesday and puts the picture of the cover. And Bonang replies with 3 hearts with love faces and hashtags wifey. And in 2015, in March, now DJ Zinhle is halfway through her pregnancy at this point, and allegedly the affair between Bonang and AKA has started. And DJ Zinhle again tweets to Bonang, and she's basically congratulating her because she had won a Nickelodeon Kids Choice Award. So she says, "Congratulations to my achiever at Bonang, Nickelodeon Kids Choice Awards." And Bonang replies, "Love you, wifey, thank you." So if these people weren't friends, the very minimum is that they were very friendly towards one another, and they're very cordial, and they're very respectful towards one another. Well, obviously that changed very soon after. So to be honest, I can imagine why DJ Zinhle decided to pull up with a whole blog to announce the affair between Bonang and AKA, because it was huge. And she probably really felt played by both parties, to be honest. But all of this did not stop Bonang and AKA from denying everything, going as far as making sure that their PR teams knew to make sure that anyone asking them questions does not ask them questions pertaining to their affair. Naturally, DJ Zinhle and AKA separated, but AKA stayed fully present in his daughter's life, and him and DJ Zinhle started what would be a very successful and healthy parenting relationship. Not too long after Zinhle and AKA formally announced their breakup, fans started leaking pictures on the internet of AKA and Bonang like running around town together in restaurants and alike. Regardless of what was happening in his personal life, AKA's star was still shining bright, and he released his lead single from his 3rd studio album, The World Is Yours, in 2016, and it also went on to do amazing numbers. AKA was at the peak of his career, and although a lot of people weren't approving of how his relationship with Bonang started, a lot of people started warming up to it, and the couple went on to being a huge powerhouse in the South African music industry. The year now is 2017, and AK and Bonang are 2 years into their relationship, and back in Durban, Anele Tembe is in matric at Durban Girls College. She passes matric well, and instead of going on to study further at a higher institution, she opts to do a gap year. During this time, she traveled the world, and she would come back to South Africa and tell her father that she was so inspired on her recent trip to Europe, and the food was good and it tickled her culinary senses, and she really wanted to open the first Michelin-style restaurant in South Africa. And because of all of this, she then tells her father that she wants to go back to Ibiza because she really wants to learn more about their food. Anele's father was 100% supporting and willing to help her financially to actually open this Michelin-style restaurant. However, he did advise her that when she comes back from Ibiza, she has to go to culinary school, and also she has to equip herself with business expertise to actually make sure that she's able to run a successful business. Because it's not only about the kitchen and the aesthetics, but it's also a well-rounded business, and she needs to know each and every corner of it. Anele went to Ibiza, and when she came back, she went to culinary school, and she actually excelled and became a certified chef. Back in Johannesburg, unfortunately, AKA and Bonang had broken up. Now, although they never really came out to tell us exactly why they separated, and of course, they really did not owe us any of that, but AKA went on to radio and did interviews about Bonang. And he basically said that, insinuated that Bonang was using muti, he found stones under her bed, and also said things like, you know what, in their 2-year relationship, not for a single day did he see Bonang without a wig on. She used to wash with a wig, etc., etc., etc. So at the end, really, the relationship, or the breakup rather, was a bit bitter, and this was coming from AKA's side. Bonang never actually came out to say anything about AKA. Anyway, with all of that said, life went on, and not too long after the breakup, we started seeing pictures of AKA with his baby mama, DJ Zinhle, and their daughter, who was 3 years old at this point. Rumors started circulating that the couple was back together, and indeed, the couple did confirm it, and we started seeing them going on holiday all around the world together. I remember they went to Mauritius, and they just looked like a wholesome family. Life seemed like it was coming together for AKA, and he released his 4th album, Touch My Blood, which also went on to do really well. Now, although the family seemed like it was thriving from the outside, unfortunately, though they were trying for the second time around, their relationship clearly was not destined to be. Because about a month after they had actually come back from their December holidays with their daughter, AKA was spotted kissing another girl at a restaurant or a club in Johannesburg, and that video went viral on Twitter. And the reason that this was so shocking was because AKA and Zinhle were literally posting each other not even less than a month before on holiday. And naturally, people assumed that AKA was back to his cheating ways. And actually, not too long after that, DJ Zinhle came out to announce publicly that AKA and herself were no longer together. Through their trials and tribulations, the one thing that remained constant was that AKA loved and devoted all his time to his daughter. AKA was always a present father. He was there when she was born. He was there on her first day of school. He took her on play dates, on concerts, to see Bonnie. They traveled the world. She was a priority to AKA, and she was loved, and he was loved in return. Soon after, AKA and Zinhle came out that they had indeed separated and would no longer be together. Twitter investigators tried their best to find who that lady was, whom AKA was kissing at that restaurant when the video went viral. And of course, they found her and they certified that it was indeed her when they saw that AKA was following the account, because I believe at the time it had around 1.9 followers. They found out that, okay, this is the girl that was kissing AKA. And very soon after, actually, AKA and Anele Tembe started to be seen out more and more in public together, and they started to open up more about their relationship. 2 months after DJ Zinhle and AKA had broken up, and around 2 months again after Anele Tembe and AKA had started dating, it was March 2020 and the coronavirus pandemic started. South Africa was in lockdown and AKA and Anele decided to quarantine together. AKA later stated that this actually gave them an opportunity to actually really get to know one another, and they fell deeply in love. Unfortunately for us, they blessed us with many videos of them just breaking it down in the kitchen or just having fun together during quarantine. However, things did not stay rosy for long, because 8 months after they started staying together, the first signs of trouble surfaced when an article came out in the City Press stating that AKA and the lovers' tiff ends with them at the police station. This was allegedly because an argument started over cheating rumors. The argument went out of control, and it is believed that neighbors called the police because of the noise that they were having. The police arrived at their Bryanston's home, and Anele's bags were allegedly packed, and she was screaming, saying that she is leaving him. They escorted both of them to the Randburg police station, where they proceeded to try and lay criminal charges against one another. And the reason for this is that Anele allegedly was saying that AKA had manhandled her, while AKA was saying that Anele slapped him. After long consultations and exchanges, they decided not to lay charges against one another. And on the following Sunday, the City Press came out with this article. Because they had allegedly fixed things already, they were very quick to fire back. Nelly posted a picture of them together on her Instagram page and captioned it, "He is for keeps." Now, AKA commented on that picture and said, "I love you." He then took the exact same picture, screenshotted it and posted it on his Twitter and basically captioned it, "Nothing more to say really." And that was the end of that, to be honest. Well, at least for then. Because 2 weeks later, on the 11th of December 2020, news websites came out with a story stating that a woman who was dating a hip-hop artist, they never named the hip-hop artist, and they never gave us a name for the woman, had allegedly tried to jump from the top of the Hilton building. There was a video that was circulating. It was confirmed that this video was a woman who was allegedly dating a hip-hop artist in South Africa. She had tried to jump, and fortunately, she was convinced by someone to not do it. I'm just going to show you a small clip from that specific video. If you want the full clip and actually hear her, you can search for it on Twitter. It is available. I will not be posting it here, but I just want to give you guys an idea of what happened. Although at the time when this was actually happening in real time, no one confirmed the name of the artist this lady was dating and actually what her name was. But in a later interview, when AK was talking to Tembegile Mkhototo, he actually verified that indeed this was Anele Tembe. Like I already mentioned, fortunately, she was convinced to calm down and she was taken to a psychiatric hospital in Umhlanga in Durban. She spent a week there and was given medication allegedly for depression and anxiety. AKA would later state that Anele's father actually knew that Anele was there. And I want you to take note of this. He says that Anele's father knew that Anele was there, and he also was actually the one who went to fetch her after the week was over. Nonetheless, after this happened, AKA's relationship didn't show any signs of stopping. In fact, 2 months later, on the 21st of February 2021, AKA proposed. Anele went onto her social media and posted this Instagram to her followers. On the caption, she wrote, "On the 21st of February 2022, on this day, I said yes to the love of my life and best friend. Words cannot describe how grateful I am to be your life partner, even though the highs are high and the lows. You have always stood by me. I thank you, Kiernan Forbes, for loving me wholeheartedly and never giving up on us. Cheers to the beginning of forever. For life, boo." The following day, AKA reposted a picture of Anele's hand on his stories and captioned it, "Lol, you honey saying it will end in tears. Learn a thing or two because joke's on you for being fucking trolls. Happy fucking Monday." And essentially, just like that, the couple was engaged and set to spend the rest of their lives together. 2 months later, on the last weekend of March, the Forbes family flew down to Durban to pay Lobola for Anele Tembe. The negotiations were said to have gone well, and the couple shared snippets of the weekend on their Instagram. What everyone didn't know, though, was that things weren't really amazing between the couple. AK would later state that the week after Lobola was extremely hard for them. They were fighting constantly. Now, although AK refused to actually tell us why they were fighting so much, friends close to the couple would later state that it was about cheating allegations once more. Nonetheless, a week after the Lobola negotiations, the couple had traveled to Cape Town. AKA was booked to perform at a Yep Yep in Cape Town, and they decided to make a trip of it and actually do a little getaway and perhaps rekindle their love because the week was hard. After all, they really deserved the getaway because technically they were married just a week before. They arrived in Cape Town on the Friday. They were booked at the Pepper Club Hotel, and they just dropped off their luggage and then they decided to go shopping at the V&A waterfront. They shared stories on their Instagram of them going out shopping. They went to Maxhosa and they bought sunglasses and a couple of t-shirts. And thereafter, they went for lunch where they met up with their friends, one of which was Don Design, who is an all-time friend of AKA. After lunch and a couple of sundowners, the couple went back to their hotel to prepare for AK's gig that night at a Yep Yep. Now, you must remember it was still during COVID time, so clubs actually closed at 12 p.m., meaning that artists had to perform a little bit earlier than they usually would. They got to a Yep Yep, and you can see videos of them looking like they're having fun. And just before 11:30, they were done and they went back to the Pepper Club Hotel. They were booked on the 10th floor. Now, when they got back, AKA said that because they had such a good time on the day, they decided to revisit some of their issues from the previous week, perhaps in an effort to try and settle them because they were in a good mood. Unfortunately, things did not work out as planned. Instead of them actually resolving things, it actually made things worse and they started arguing. The time, you must remember, is around 11:30 when they got back. The argument is said to have continued from 11:30 until 7 a.m. in the morning. So you can just imagine people who've been up the whole day, had a full day, went out performing, had a few drinks, and then they still came back to argue from 11 p.m. until 7 a.m. in the morning. The argument really got heated, and AKA says that he decided that he wants to book himself another room, so he went downstairs and asked to be booked into another room. For whatever reason, I believe he said that he left his phone in the room that Anele was in. He went back to that room, and instead of him finding his phone, then the argument commenced once more. AKA then says that at this point, it had escalated so much that Anele was threatening to jump from the window. He then says that he tried to get help. He called reception and asked them to please bring security up for help. And then he said that after he placed that call, he decided to go to the bathroom, perhaps to give her air, or maybe she didn't want to see him. So he decided to go to the bathroom so that he is not in the room with her. Now, at the time, I'm guessing this made a lot of sense for AKA to leave her while she's saying she's going to jump. And unfortunately, when he came back from the bathroom, minutes later, Anele was no longer in the room.
When things really kind of started to take a turn for things, I decided it would be best that I remove myself from the situation. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to, gather my belongings. I'm going to leave the room, book myself into another room, and hopefully things will simmer down. Got to a point where we argued more, and she, the thing that really breaks my heart, and I still, I have her ring, with me. It's really the only thing that I have of hers, of her belongings. And she took it off, and she kind of threw it at me, and we said, very mean things to each other. And so I left the room, came back to the room because I had taken her phone. And obviously, we continued to argue. And then things took a turn for the worst when, we had gotten to a point in the argument where Anele had kind of threatened to kill herself, or to, jump off the balcony. She didn't say in those words, though. And I had called reception for security. And I kind of tried to remove myself from the situation again, and I think maybe out of panic. I didn't want to be there or kind of feel that this was going to happen. I kind of wanted to remove myself from it, so I went to the bathroom. And when I when I came out of the bathroom, she wasn't.
He says he quickly rushed to the window. He saw one of his neighbors looking down and screaming, and it only hit him then that a flip, Anele had actually jumped. Now, please note that this is, of course, AK's version. The family has its own version, and you'll actually hear their version a little later on in the video. So he says it takes him a couple of minutes to actually comprehend what's actually happening. He then, after that, goes to the next room where one of his friends was sleeping and tells the friend that actually, go check. Anele's jump. Go check downstairs. So the guy quickly goes downstairs. He finds paramedics already called, and they're there, and Anele is still alive. Anele was said to be alive for 20 minutes after the jump. They're working on her, and he goes upstairs. He tells AK, okay, she's still alive. He gets hopeful. He goes down again, and unfortunately, when he comes back up for the second time, he shrugs and basically tells AKA that Anele is no more. The first person that AKA calls thereafter is his father, Tony, who is based in Cape Town, and he comes immediately. The police also come, and they took AKA to the police station where he was questioned and asked to write a statement. They also took pictures of his body to see if there was any wounds or any sort of DNA evidence that they could find. He gave his statement, and he was told that he could leave the police station. Now, naturally, he decided that he can't sleep at the Pepper Club Hotel once more, so they decided to book into a different hotel around Cape Town. The following day, Anele's father and her siblings were due to come and identify her body. So the first stop when they arrived was to go and identify her, and soon after they decided to go and meet up with AKA. When they arrived, they chatted a little bit, but they did not initiate the conversation as to what happened the previous night. So AKA decided to start the conversation himself and just let them know that they had an argument, and then it led to Anele jumping from the 10th floor. AKA says that Anele's father was visibly upset about what had happened and sad at the same time. But nonetheless, they passed their condolences and they separated for that night. The following day, AKA flew back to Johannesburg. The family went back to Durban. Now, family decided that they would 100% do all the preparations that had to do with the funeral. So what AKA did was that he then informed one of his people to ask the Tembes that can he please kindly speak at the funeral, obviously to do a tribute to his wife / fiance, however way you want to look at it. Now, on the week leading up to the weekend of the funeral, a lot of prayer groups were held. Now, because it was still COVID times, most of them had to be via Zoom, and we actually got to see one of those sessions where AKA and his family spoke. A few days later, the day of the funeral came. AKA would later state that he was shocked when he got to the funeral venue and he looked at the program and his name was not there. Now, besides that being the first thing that shocked him, two other things shocked him further during the funeral. He says that the first was that when Mr. Zungu was speaking on behalf of Anele Tembe's father, he had mentioned that Anele's father does not believe that Anele had taken her own life. In fact, he doesn't even believe that Anele had ever been suicidal.
We're here because Anele is no more. How is Anele no more? That's a question. In answering the vexing question, I must hasten to state the obvious, that I wasn't there when Anele met her fate last Sunday. I neither seek to attack any person, nor cast aspersions, nor create suspicions, nor stigmatize any mental condition. However, I cannot allow an unfortunate narrative go unchallenged. A narrative that irks me to no end as a father, which is maliciously purveyed in some circles, that Anele, my daughter, was a chronically suicidal or had suicidal tendencies. All I can say is that until she turned 21, Anele wouldn't consider taking her own life as a solution. Not a single member of my family, Anele's family, will have ever associated Anele with suicide. It never arose. Living would not have been Anele's challenge. On the contrary, Anele loved herself so much, she wanted to live more rather than less.
Now, this comes as a shock to AKA, obviously, because he says that he knew of the incident back at the Hilton. He knew that she had went to a psychiatric hospital. So for him, he says this was a shock. The second shock that he found was that Bheki Cele was allowed to speak at the funeral, but he was not allowed to speak. He felt like he did not understand why a police minister would speak at a funeral of someone who took their own life. For him, that was a complete disconnect, but also he put one and one together. Anele's father is saying that he does not believe that Anele took her own life, and now the police minister is talking. Surely something was happening in the background.
I thought that I would have an opportunity to also speak at a funeral to pay tribute to her, and I communicated that to the family. Through the person on my side who was handling things, through to the family. And I got there and I sat down and I opened the book of the memorial and my name wasn't there. So I thought I would be speaking at the memorial. But so after I see that I'm not being permitted to speak, I kind of take it in and then I listen to the dad's kind of testimony, and then about she not committing suicide. Didn't feel right to me. Something didn't feel right having his presence there, along with the father saying that this was not a suicide. The two together for me didn't equate. I said, I don't understand. Why did you say that she didn't commit suicide? And his explanation to me was that he wants to preserve her memory. He can't have people in the media or social media talking about her that way, having her remembered that way as someone who was kind of depressive or suicidal. He can't, there was all these things are being said about his daughter. And at the time I agreed. It kind of made sense to me, like, okay, protect her memory at all costs. And
besides everything else that was happening, Anele Tembe's send-off was absolutely beautiful. They had spared no costs. It was held at the Durban ICC and everything was truly exceptional. Less than 1 month after the funeral, videos of AK and Anele's relationship started surfacing. One of them is Anele screaming and telling people that they do not know what AKA has been doing to her while they try to contain her. While we are all trying to digest this video, another one comes up and AKA is talking through this video in a room that is completely turned upside down. And he is saying that he is going to use this video in court and that Anele has messed up that whole room. And you can see Anele at the corner, she's rocking herself and you can hear her saying that she wants her mother. Now, obviously, all these videos had all of us shook and trying to wonder what exactly was happening in this relationship. Because if anything, 100% of us believe that yes, Anele had actually jumped off from the 10th floor of the Pepper Club. But after these videos started coming out, we all started questioning, like, is this really what happened? While we were still looking at those videos, pictures came out. And these pictures were wild. They were allegedly taken by Anele. She had locked herself in a room in their Bryanston home, and AKA broke the door down. He broke the door down, and you can see him in the screenshots of the video. He is looking like he is charging towards the person who's carrying the camera. And you wonder, why are you doing that? Obviously, after these pictures came out, AKA was left with no choice but to come out and do a tell-all interview and actually just tell us what was really going on in that relationship. He granted Bar Leader Productions the rights to this video, and Tembekile Mkhototo would do the interview. Now, the full interview is available on YouTube. I will try and link it down below as well. Now, AKA tried to explain down these videos, and he tried doing so by explaining that they had a passionate relationship. They were passionate lovers, and they were also passionate fighters. And because of this, most of their arguments became bigger than they were supposed to be. Now, he also said that he doesn't really remember why they were fighting the day he broke the door. But I find that very hard to believe. If I don't normally break doors and this one time we have an argument and it makes me break a door, trust and believe that I will remember exactly what that argument is about. But AKA said that no, because they fought so much and they fought passionately like that a lot of the times, you truly did not know what that argument is about. But friends of Anele had actually come out again to say that that argument was about cheating allegations. So another two things that I took away from that interview with Tembekile Mkhototo is that one, AKA was put in a corner to actually admit that he took drugs. And the reason I say that he was put in a corner, I do not believe in any other situation would AKA would have come out and admit that actually, yes, I take or I have been taking drugs or I took drugs at some point in my life. But he had to. Mkhototo asked him whether he took drugs, and he had to admit that he has, because one, had he lied and someone out there knows that AK is taking drugs, then we were all going to think that had the person come out and say, actually, AK is taking drugs with me, we were not going to believe anything else that AKA says in that conversation. Because if you can lie about taking drugs, then you can definitely lie about whether or not someone jumped or was pushed from the 10th floor of a building. Now, the second thing was that he was also asked if Anele took drugs. And drugs actually are a big feature because the father also mentioned drugs at the funeral. Now, I already mentioned, please go look at that video that I'm going to post down below where the father speaks. So Mkhototo asked whether Anele also took drugs, and AK's answer is that unfortunately he can't speak for Anele because Anele is no longer here. Now, if my fiance had passed away from suicide and there were allegations that she was taking drugs, the first thing I was going to do was if she never took drugs in her life, I was going to say there's no way she didn't. I was going to be point blank. The only reason he can answer like that is because possibly she did, and that is my takeaway from it. It's 100% my opinion. In the interview, it also came out that AKA had actually not spoken to the family since the funeral. Now, I can imagine that the videos that came out of AKA and Anele had made this even worse, because after the interview aired, life went back to normal for AKA. AKA started performing again, and December of 2021, around 7 months after Anele had passed away, AKA and Nadia Nakai started slowly teasing us with pictures of themselves on getaways in the same place. Now, this basically insinuated that they were in a relationship. Very soon, Twitter detectives confirmed that yes, indeed, the couple is together. And a lot of people disapproved of this relationship, saying that they were not comfortable with the fact that AK had actually started a relationship within 6 months of his fiance/wife dying. And the reason they were saying this is that it was not really the fact that he was starting a relationship within 6 months. I think the biggest problem was how she transitioned, or rather how she passed away, because it was not necessarily an accident. And this is whether or not she did it to herself or she was pushed. It's that it's not an accident, it was on purpose. And especially because there was a fight around her even doing that to herself, if that is indeed what she did. So people felt like, no, you're not giving the family a chance to heal or whatsoever. Or maybe, yeah, start your relationship, but don't make it so public. So that was the main point of contention, and AK didn't owe anyone an explanation. And if anything, the relationship went on and it looked beautiful. They looked like they really loved one another. And a lot of people would later say that AKA was saved by Nadia because he was going to go downhill had it not been for her. So you know what? She was good for him. So anyway, life went on, and very soon the first anniversary of Anele Tembe's passing came, which was on the 11th of April of 2022. AKA put out a post on Instagram and captioned it, "I'll remember this day for the rest of my life. 11th of April 2021. Every day I pray for the healing of your family and my family. I hope that one day we can come together and pay respects to you and your memory at the same place at the same time." I think this post really brings across the fact that the families were really not as close as they used to be. And really, the first anniversary of her passing would have been the great opportunity to come together and honor Anele once more and remember her as a family united. But clearly that was not going to be happening. And the fact that he's busy praying it for it on the first year meant that chances of it happening even later on was definitely not going to be something that's going to happen. And also, I think the fact that he had moved on just maybe sent a message to the family that, I mean, why do you even want anything to do with us when you already moved on within 6 months? So that's the energy I'm getting from this. I might be wrong, but that's just my opinion. So moving on to the facts, and let's leave the opinions for a moment, is that round about this time, the first anniversary of Anele's passing, which was last year in April, the family was actually pushing and paddling that AK must be prosecuted for what they believed was the murder of their daughter. And the reason we know this now is because lawyers actually have come out. The Tembe family got a lawyer, and the lawyer was going to assist them with making sure that AKA has his day in court. Now, what was happening is obviously the inquest document was open. This was something that we all knew, that the inquest was never closed. Now, if an inquest is not closed to something, it means that they have not satisfied themselves that this person actually did take their own life, that there are other chances that something else would have happened. But unfortunately, although they were pushing and paddling that he must have his day in court, the NPA then had a meeting with the family around June of last year and told them that unfortunately, we do not have enough evidence to go on with this case. They called them in for a meeting, so they really honored them and they gave them the respect that they deserved as a family that is mourning. And they really broke it down that, listen, we really don't have enough evidence to move on with this. The family was not okay with this. They decided then to, you know what, if you guys don't have enough evidence, we will bring you the evidence. So that is what we're about to get into. I am going to break down the evidence that Anele Tembe's family had to prove that what they believed, which is AKA took their daughter's life. They had done their own homework. These are wealthy people. They probably got their own investigators. And this, what I'm about to share with you, is a letter that their lawyer had written to the NPA. I'm just not going to read the whole letter, but I'm going to just break down the bits and pieces that I feel like are very relevant as to what evidence they really had. So the first piece of evidence that they had was they had a witness. The witness was a man named Rob, who was also at the Pepper Club Hotel that same night. Now, you must remember the argument started around 11 p.m. when they arrived back from the club, and it lasted until 7 a.m. Now, Rob said that he heard them. They were arguing, but at a lot of the times, and especially towards the end, and the end is when I believe Anele jumped or was pushed down, is that around that time he had a female saying that desperately pleading, and this is what he says, I'm quoting verbatim, is that desperately pleading for the men to leave her alone. Now, for me, that could mean a lot of things. It could mean that she says, leave me alone, as in just go because AK was allegedly going to another room, or leave me alone because the person is handling you in a way that you don't want. So that's the first piece of evidence that they had. The second piece of evidence that they had is, you remember AKA said that he called reception before Anele jumped. I'm going to use jumped, and this is in inverted commas because we really don't know what happened, is that he called reception to ask for security to come up. Anele's family believe that the call was made after Anele was already at the bottom, meaning Anele jumped or was thrown, and then AKA only made that call. And when he was speaking, especially in the interviews, he said that I made that call. I asked them for security because Anele was threatening to jump, and then I went to the bathroom, and only after I came back she had jumped. So obviously there's some time there, so it doesn't make sense if they're saying that by the time he was calling, people are already screaming outside. So that's the second piece of evidence, is that your timeline is not timelining. And then the third piece of evidence that they had is lack of fingerprints. Now when I say lack of fingerprints, it's that apparently the window where Anele went out from was quite small, so you'd have to actually touch it as you're putting yourself through it if you are jumping by yourself. But if someone is throwing you out of that window or pushing you out, then obviously your fingerprints are not going to be there. And that was the case. There were no fingerprints around the perimeters of the window. So they felt like, how is Anele going to jump out the window without actually touching the window? So that was the third thing. And then the fourth thing was, I said they felt like he didn't care, and this is the feeling I get from this piece of evidence, is that maybe they felt like he didn't care because they said that he did not go downstairs to check on his fiance/wife. He just stayed up there. And to make it worse, they're also saying that had he cared, because Anele was actually alive for 20 minutes after the jump, is that he would have been up there, he would have been trying to help the paramedics. And I think this one is not a fair one to say, because I don't know if I would want to go see after someone has jumped. Honestly, respond differently to shock. So that part of this evidence is not really fair. However, they went on to say that the reason he didn't go downstairs was because he was up there busy cleaning. They're saying that he was cleaning blood spatters, and he was also cleaning up the room because he had ransacked the room. I imagine it probably looked like one of the other rooms that they had ransacked in different hotels, like the video that we already have. So they just had a huge problem with this, is that why are you using your time and energy cleaning up while you could be trying to save your fiance's life? So this is the evidence that they brought up to the NPA. Unfortunately, even after they submitted this evidence, the NPA still said that they don't have a strong enough case to go to court, and they really don't want to prosecute. Basically, they are denying a prosecution of AKA for the murder, what the family believed was a murder of Anele Tembe. It is said that they were still not satisfied with this and were still going to put more submissions to the NPA. So this was not closed. And this happened again around July of last year. But it all happened not exactly in private, but no one knew about it. It was happening at the NPA, and it was happening between the family and the NPA. And no one has to tell someone that they're being investigated. So AKA definitely did not know that he's being investigated unless someone in Anele's family had told him, which I doubt that happened. Nonetheless, life went on. AKA was busy recording his next studio album, which was going to be Mass County, that he planned to release on the 24th of February in 2023. His personal life was also really going well. The relationship between him and Nadia Nakai had really blossomed. Nadia and Nakai actually spent Christmas with AKA's family, and they traveled together over December. They was just in love. AKA was also performing a lot in December, and he really felt like himself. He mentioned that this was the first time he felt like this in 2 years, and he was having fun, and he was really looking forward to 2023. New Year came, and it was 2023, and AKA celebrated his 35th birthday on the 28th of January in 2023. He celebrated it with Nadia and Cairo, and Cairo actually baked him a nice chocolate cake, and he really, really loved it and had a best time. He also went out performing in clubs and celebrated his birthday in what he dubbed a birthday tour. Now, one of his stops for his birthday tour was supposed to be a club in Durban called Hugo, and he was supposed to be there on the 10th of February in 2023. There are allegations out there that AKA had been warned not to go back to Durban. I'm guessing because of Anele Tembe being from Durban. Unfortunately, I cannot prove this. I do not have proof of it, but I'll just put it out there that there are these allegations that AKA had been warned not to go to Durban. Nonetheless, with all those allegations, true or not, on the 10th of February 2023, AKA and some of his friends flew down from Johannesburg to Durban. They got to Durban, they checked in at their hotel, and the first stop for AKA was the gym. He took a snap of himself at the gym and posted his location that he is in Durban, and you can see that he's very excited to be here. Thereafter, together with his friends/crew, they decided to go to Florida Road, where they got there and they actually started by getting haircuts. This was something that was not planned, but AKA wanted to support a friend who actually owns the barber shop. So they cut their hair, and then when they're done, they go next door to Wish on Florida, which is owned by the same person who owns the barber shop. They have some drinks and some food, obviously, and they really look happy because they keep on posting on their stories. So they're actually documenting all of what is happening on social media. And you actually see that they're having the time of their lives. They're toasting, they're laughing, they're smiling, they're happy. So it was really what looked like a good time. Next door to the restaurant AKA was in is another restaurant, and in that restaurant is Tepelo. Tepelo Tibbs is actually in Durban for a friend's birthday party, which is supposed to be on the 11th of April, the following day. He has also just landed, and he has decided to have some drinks with other friends other than AKA, but obviously either through social media or they had actually told one another, but they discovered that they're actually at the same place. And so Tepelo decides that he's going to go and greet AKA next door and then come back to his friends and continue with the night. Now, it is alleged that Tepelo went inside Wish on Florida to go in and greet AKA, but met them as they were coming out to leave, as they were preparing to go to Hugo. Now, so they all decide to rather get out at the same time, and then they would greet each other properly outside. So you actually see CCTV footage of them hugging and embracing because they hadn't seen each other in a bit. AKA and Tibbs hug for what seemed like forever in a beautiful moment, and they just embraced one another. They hugged, they let go, and they shook hands again, and they get close. Really, you felt the love. You felt like two people who have missed one another were hugging and were meeting once more. Unfortunately, this beautiful moment would be disrupted by chaos, as from a far distance, you actually notice a man in a white hat and a white sweater crossing the road and coming closer to where AKA and Tibbs are. And right at the top on the other side behind AKA's vehicle that they were traveling in, you see another man dressed in black who also has a whitish hat, also hide behind a pole. Now, if you also notice the environment, you will notice that there's a white GTI that is parking AKA's car in. AKA's car is the white, I think it's a H1. And then right next to AKA's car, there's actually another car that is parking them in. So even if they wanted to move after the whole hug and they go into the car, there was a GTI in front of them that was totally closing them in. And there was another car right next to them as well. So they were really not going to be able to go anywhere. Nonetheless, and I'm not going to, just a brief disclaimer, I'm not going to show the full video. I cannot, I would never. I think just for the respect for AKA and his family, I'm not going to post the whole thing here. And obviously, I think it's not even allowed on YouTube. But what I will do is, if you want it, it's available on Twitter. It's easily searchable there. So I encourage you to go search it there. But here, I'm just going to show you the moment leading towards what's going to happen. And then I'm obviously going to cut it off, and then we're going to continue thereafter. The man in the white sweater and white cap or hat approaches AKA from the back. He comes very swiftly. It is very, very quick, and you can see him approaching AKA. And unfortunately, right after this, he shoots and he immediately falls on the floor. Now, as he's doing that, simultaneously from the other side, where I was pointing at the man in black, he also shoots after, and he actually gets Tibbs. AK unfortunately lost his life immediately, and Tibbs is said to have struggled a little bit but lost his life due to cardiac arrest because of the amount of blood that he was losing. And I imagine this is because the guys had been drinking. So if you are drinking, you tend to lose a lot of blood very quickly. And unfortunately, just like that, AK's life was gone and it was over. This happened around 10 p.m. at night on the 10th of February 2023. And the family was very swift to actually come out with a statement to confirm it. I'll have the statement up and you can just pause to read it. And to say that social media was ablaze is an understatement. People did not sleep, okay? Everyone was traumatized, did not understand why someone would want to take AK's life. Why is this happening in South Africa? Because we'd actually had a lot of people, especially in the music industry, dying in such a manner. So it was just a huge shock, and especially because AK is huge, okay? So a lot of people were taken aback and they were sad and they were heartbroken, and it was warranted because why did this happen? Now, as you guys already know, social media detectives do not sleep. They were up and they were doing all sorts of investigations, and they were out with a lot of speculations as to what really happened to AKA, or why this would have happened to him, or who did it, or who paid for it to be done. So those type of speculations were out there. Now, obviously, that's not my part to play in. I do not play around speculations, but I will read one. And the reason I'm reading one is because that this person is apparently very popular, and I have been following her for the past 2 years as well. And the reason I follow her is because I do true crime. She's actually the person who introduced me to my previous video. Is that she's called, I think, Diva, True Crime Diva on Facebook. I will put her account up above. And the reason I followed her is that at the time that Nolovuyo, who's on my previous video, if you haven't watched it, I recommend that you do. She had actually told the family 2 years before she was found that actually Nolovuyo has passed away and she is buried near running water. Now, at the time that we were finding this out, was like, okay, if she's buried near running water, she was also obviously still missing at the time, was like the assumption was that, oh, she's probably buried somewhere near a river, a dam, near the ocean, because that's what you think if someone says near running water. 2 years later, then the family finds out that she was actually buried under her bathtub for the past 2 years. And this is something Diamond Diva, I was there when she put those speculations out there, so I know for a fact. So after that, I was like, okay, her predictions are kind of true. And a lot more other cases have come out, some of which I haven't done on my channel, so I really don't want to share them now. But she has been speculating things that come out. She has a huge following. I just want to read what she said, or her opinion of the matter. It is not my opinion. It is definitely not the opinion of the channel. It is just an opinion of divas on Facebook, and I'm just sharing it with you guys. You can tell me what you think about it. Also, you can let me know on the comments below if you're uncomfortable with the fact that I shared this, or you feel like it's unfair that I've shared this. This is an open platform. I encourage debate. I encourage comments. So let's dive into Diva's findings, quote unquote. I read. The message here is clear: a life for a life. This was a definite hit. AKA had been warned to stay out of KZN after Anele's death. However, he defied the warnings by not only going to Durban, but also by doing a gig in Durban, which he never got to do as he was killed. AKA posted photos of his high lifestyle, the food, the barber, the drinks, and so much more all over social media handles. This social media footprint allowed suspects to know his exact whereabouts. This also infuriated those that had sent the warning to AKA to stay away, and they saw this as a challenging arrogance and defiance. Now, a hit on AKA had already been placed. Should he ever return to KZN, then go ahead with the hit. So this means that, according to Diva, it was not placed on the night. She then goes on to say that the main person who originally called the hit will not be exposed. He is protected, untouchable. Someone else will take the blame and be arrested. Now, this will also come as a surprise or shock, but a female is the one who alerted that AKA is posting this post and showing where he was. Now, the two shooters are hired killers, hitmen, who received a huge amount of money each. Now, in total, I see 6 people involved. Blood money can be traced, but it may take a while to do so. She then says, I feel only 2 people will take a rest and a 50-50 chance if a third one will also be. So my assumption is that the rest of the 3, because he says altogether 6, will not be arrested. Now, these are highly allegations. And like I already mentioned, they do not necessarily reflect the opinions of my channel or myself personally. I am just sharing with you guys what is out there. Now, obviously, the Tembe family were hearing about most of the stuff that is out on social media, especially on Twitter, because Moses Tembe was trending on Twitter for the longest time, and people have had opinions of this nature anyway. And he came out with a statement. I'm going to leave it also up in the screen and you can just pause to read it. But the general gist of the statement is that they do not appreciate it. Highly dangerous that you guys are saying such allegations, not only for everyone, for his family, for himself. And he's just saying, stop it. Don't say stuff like that. With all the noise and the commotion that is happening in the background, the main thing was that AKA had lost his life, Tibbs had lost his life, and his family had to now make arrangements to bury their sons, which is extremely painful. A public memorial service was arranged for Tibelo, which was on the Thursday, and then on the Friday, AKA's public memorial was also held at the Sandton ICC in Johannesburg, and it was a very emotional event. And also just there was a lot of love. You saw the love that Zinhle has for AKA's girlfriend, the love that Kyra has for AKA's girlfriend, the love that they just all have for one another. It was a very warm and emotional and fun, if you may. It was fun. They were dancing, they were having fun while they tried to celebrate AKA, because he had a huge life and they really wanted it to be not only somber but also something that they can smile about, because he had a life well lived. And the very next day, they then asked that they want privacy, and they buried their son in a private funeral. Tibbs is also buried on the very same day. So just tragic all around. Not only 2 lives were lost in this whole entire story, actually 3 lives were lost so unnecessarily and in such a painful way. So let me know down in the comments below what you think. I would really love to hear your opinions. Once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.